Hey everybody, welcome back. It's another episode of Jake Talks Star Wars, and today we are doing a two-parter. We're covering Season 1, Episode 14, Rebel Resolve, and Season 1, Episode 15, Fire Across the Galaxy. This is the season finale of Episode 1 of Star Wars Rebels, or pardon me, Season 1 of Episode Rebels. This is the season finale of the first season, and it's fantastic. I love it. If you watched my previous video, kind of reviewing episode 13 and how we got here, if you haven't watched that yet, definitely go watch that, because here with this, we're diving right into the action in episode 14. The team is trying to steal or break into an Imperial Walker to access the Imperial network to try and figure out where Kanan has been taken, where he has been whisked away to by the Inquisitor after he's been taken into custody. And it's just action, action, action from the start. And one of the things I've mentioned persistently and consistently about Rebels is the music and how good the music is. When Hera flies in this episode, there's a moment where Hera flies in, and it is the same music that we hear in the Death Star attack, when the X-Wings are kind of flying into their attack positions. It's those trumpet, like that trumpet fanfare that those X-Wings, it kind of signals that they've arrived, and they're swinging into that attack position. And that's one of my favorite pieces of Star Wars music, that little beat coupled with the action of those starships, coming into combat. Nothing in my mind says help is on the way more than that beat of music and those images. It gives me tingles every time I see it. I love it. So I love, love, love how Rebels is really doing such a great job with the music, as usual. It really makes you feel like you're in the movie, like you're watching the movies while you're watching an animated show. It's just stellar. But they can't get any good information, right? They are stuck. They cannot figure out where Kanan is. We see that Hera is talking with Fulcrum. Fulcrum wants them to lie low. Fulcrum is kind of mad, admonishing them a little bit, like, hey, your mission was to lie low and not attract attention, and now you've done exactly the opposite of that. You've attracted everybody's attention. The whole galaxy heard what you had to say. The upper echelons of the Imperial government heard what you had to say, and now all eyes are on Lothal. So you guys gotta chill. You gotta get off the planet. You gotta go into hiding. You gotta relax for a while. And that's Fulcrum, right? And she's chalking up, we don't know who Fulcrum is yet. Fulcrum is chalking up the loss of Kanan to he knows what he did. He knows what he did and why he did it, and honor his sacrifice by getting away. Right? So Fulcrum is not encouraging them to go after Kanan, which is unacceptable to Ezra. He is not a fan of that course of action. But again, it's cool to know that the message worked. The message is inspiring hope all over Lothal, and it's getting off the galaxy as well, which is really, really great. We cut to the Inquisitor, and the Inquisitor and Tarkin are torturing the living daylights out of poor Kanan. They really are. They want him to... They are really trying to get him to... They are trying to get him to break and give up the rest of the rebel crew, which is something he's not willing to do. And it's something that... Hera is kind of upset about, because Kanan couldn't, even if he wanted to, because he doesn't know anything. He doesn't know anything about Fulcrum. Remember, we had this story earlier in the season where there is this lack of information that's being shared among the cell. Like, Hera is the only one who really knows how to contact Fulcrum and how to get in touch with Fulcrum and those sorts of things. But even Hera doesn't know who Fulcrum is, right? Everything is compartmentalized. only individuals only know so much. So Kanan couldn't spill the beans and save himself, even if he wanted to. And Hera knows that. Eventually, Ezra is able to figure out a way to figure out where Kanan is. He goes to Vizago, which is a lowly underworld type that they've done some work with before, and he's able to get that information from Vizago that Kanan is, Kanan's on this certain Star Destroyer and where they may be headed and these sorts of things. And as the mission progresses, as they use the information from Vizago, they discover that Kanan is headed for Mustafar. Now, Mustafar is a name that if you're a big-time Star Wars fan, you know. If you're a casual fan, you may not know it. Mustafar is where Darth Vader became Darth Vader, right? This is where Anakin and Obi-Wan had their duel, where Anakin was so wounded, so grievously wounded by Obi-Wan and the lava, that he had to don this Darth Vader suit and kind of become Darth Vader. And it really fits, because Hera has only heard of Mustafar once, when Kanan talked about it to her. And the team kind of looks at her and says, well, what did Kanan say about Mustafar? What's the deal? And she says, it's where Jedi go to die. Now, Kanan doesn't know this. Hera doesn't know this. We know this. That Mustafar is not only where Darth Vader was born, per se, but also where Darth Vader has his castle. Darth Vader has his home. And this is probably why Jedi are brought here to be broken, to be just destroyed, and have the information that the Empire wants kind of extracted from them aggressively. So, pretty spooky stuff. But that leads us to the next episode, right? The season finale, Fire Across the Galaxy. They have to use a captured Imperial ship and a captured Imperial TIE fighter to sneak onto a starship, onto a Star Destroyer. And remember the TIE fighter that Ezra and Zeb stole way back earlier in the season? Turns out they didn't destroy it, and they kept it. Problem is, they allowed Sabine to paint it. So Sabine has painted this thing all these multicolors and everything else. And but it's going to have to do. So they are going to use this TIE fighter to get onto the Star Destroyer, or to get bombs onto the Star Destroyer. Then they're going to dock with the Star Destroyer from another location and get in to try to rescue Kanan. And this is on Grand Moff Tarkin's Star Destroyer, mind you. This is not just any Imperial guy. This is Moff Tarkin's Star Destroyer, which is not going to be fun, right? Not going to be a fun time. I love how Ezra uses the Force to determine that Kanan is there. Again, demonstrating how far Ezra has come in his use of the Force at this juncture. I love how they use the stolen TIE fighter with bombs to disable the Star Destroyer with like an EMP blast, which is really, really great. And Ezra is able to find Kanan and locate him pretty quickly and get him out of his apparatus that he's kind of strapped to for questioning. He's able to get him out. And as they are trying to make their exit, they encounter the Inquisitor once again. And this is like the final showdown with the Inquisitor. And we see that Kanan and Ezra are now working more in tandem. They're kind of tag teaming the Inquisitor. And then, of course, the Inquisitor does what a trained soldier, a trained Jedi, a trained Sith, or not a Sith, but you know what I mean, a trained dark side user would do. He targets Ezra and kind of neutralizes Ezra, because Ezra is the weaker of the two. So he neutralizes Ezra, so now he's just focused on Kanan. And that is a mistake, because Kanan, for a minute, thinks Ezra is gone. And now he's got nothing to lose, nothing more to lose, nothing more to fear. And so he gets a second lightsaber. He gets Ezra's lightsaber, or he gets his lightsaber from the Inquisitor, and uses both of them to fight with the Inquisitor. And he is eventually able to defeat him. And I love how he defeats him, because he gives him a whole speech. You know, they talk while they're fighting and all these things. And he's, Kanan is telling the Inquisitor, yeah, I was afraid. Right? There's that thing, afraid. I was afraid, and it was holding me back, and I was being a coward. But something is stronger than that. That's the Force. And he goes, let me show you how powerful the Force is. And, at this point, the Inquisitor's holding his lightsaber. It's doing its spinning thing. And he sticks the lightsabers into the handguards and just cuts this thing up. And it falls apart. And the Inquisitor falls into this abyss. And they're going back and forth. And the Inquisitor just says, yeah, you don't know what you've done. Right? You thought I was bad. Something worse is coming. And Kanan doesn't kill the Inquisitor. Ezra doesn't kill the Inquisitor. They defeat him in battle. They defeat him in combat, yeah. They disarm him in combat and put him in a position where he really only has a choice to run or surrender or take his own life. And he chooses the third option. He's hanging from this ledge over this reactor that's now having these issues. And he says some things are, what does he say? Some things are more frightening than death. And he falls. And it just goes to show you that the Empire is something that is held together by fear. It's held together by fear of punishment, fear of death, fear of whatever. It's not held together by devotion. It's not held together by caring and acceptance or love or anything like that. It's held together by fear. And this Inquisitor, rather than fail, rather than face his failure, rather than try to live to win maybe another day, he allows himself to fall to his death rather than face Darth Vader or the Emperor or both of them. Rather than face them, he allows himself to fall to his death because he's been defeated and he knows whatever's coming for him is worse than dying. That's it. Right? That's it for the Inquisitor. Now the Star Destroyer is really in a bad way. Ezra and Kanan are going to be able to escape onto the Inquisitor's TIE fighter. And we get to the end of the episode. And all is lost. All looks lost. The transport that the team came in has been destroyed. So Hera, Sabine, and Zeb are flying in the multicolored TIE fighter, whereas Kanan and Ezra have stolen the Inquisitor's TIE fighter because, as Ezra rather darkly puts it, well, we know the Inquisitor's not using it. It's that dark sense of humor. A little bit. But as they're flying, they know they're kind of screwed, right? Because they've got TIE fighters. The Moff Tarkin's Star Destroyer was not the only one there. There were several other Star Destroyers. Little in-universe factoid for you. From what I can remember, every Star Destroyer carries about 72 TIE fighters. So there are multiple Star Destroyers, disgorging TIE fighters. So there are tons and tons of TIE fighters after the team now. And they are in big trouble because Chopper's gone, right? The Ghost is gone, Chopper is gone. And they're trying to figure out how they're going to escape. They're calling for Chopper, hoping Chopper will return. And Chopper does return, but this time he brought help. So we see Chopper return in the Ghost, and then several blockade runners, several CR-90 Corvettes, what we lovingly call Rebel blockade runners. These are Corellian CR-90 Corvettes. They're a super common starship in the galaxy, which is why the Rebels liked them so much. And they kind of fly through and they blast at the. They kind of fly through and they blast at the ties, kind of hold the ties at bay. And they are able to dock. The rebels are able to dock to the transport, and the transport is able to dock to the Ghost, and they're able to escape. But they're wondering, like, wow, who saved us? Like, who did Chopper go get? We learn that Chopper contacted Fulcrum for help, and Fulcrum decided to send help, to bring help. So when they get onto the transport, there is a hologram message from Bail Organa, Senator Bail Organa. I think it's funny that they don't know who this is. Apparently they haven't seen Organa on the news before or something. And so he says, what are you doing saving me? I've only met you a couple times. I only met you once, way back in episode 3, right? But he acknowledges that he is supporting the rebels, and he has been working with the rebels and supporting the rebels in his own way. And then we hear a familiar voice coming down the ladder, and it's Ahsoka Tano. Ahsoka Tano is Fulcrum. Ahsoka Tano has been working with Bail Organa. Ahsoka Tano is Fulcrum, and she reveals herself to Kanan and Ezra, and it's really, really interesting. It's really, really great. Like, this was a huge deal when it first came out. People were so excited. Because, again, I remember watching these as they released. People loved it. They were so excited. They were off the wall for it to have Ahsoka back and see how Ahsoka was integral in the formation of the rebellion. So very, very cool stuff. But this cuts to, their story ends. But now it cuts to the Emperor and Vader. And they're talking about how, it cuts to Vader, and about how this is not going to work, right, anymore. The Inquisitor has failed. Kallus, by extension, has failed. Kallus is still alive, but Kallus has failed as well. And the civilian authorities are talking with Tarkin. They're talking with Kallus, saying, what are we going to do now? And Tarkin says, oh, don't be afraid. The Emperor has sent an alternative solution. And then the ramp opens, and we hear that breathing, and Vader comes out. And we know that now the rebel crew is going to have to deal with Vader one way or the other. And that, again, the judicious use of bad guys makes us know that we're in trouble. And that's it for season 1. Credits roll. So season 1 is over. Credits roll with a threat. We've reintroduced Ahsoka Tano. We know that Vader is now a threat to the team. And what's going to happen in season 2? We'll have to wait a year to find out. At least, well, you won't, but I did. I had to wait a year to find out. God, it was a long year too. Very exciting time to be a Star Wars fan back then. But that's it for season 1 of episode Rebels. Now, if you are watching, if you're tagging along, if you're watching all my videos, if you're watching this far to the end, thanks again for coming by. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. I'm going to take a break from Star Wars Rebels for a little while. I'm not going to jump right into season 2 of Star Wars Rebels. I'm going to do a different series for a few videos. We're going to go over some of the Kenobi episodes, right? The Kenobi episodes are a little bit longer. They're about 35 to 45 minutes in length, I think up to an hour in length. So we're going to go through the Kenobi episodes. I think there are 6. So we're going to take a little break now that we're done with season 1 of Rebels. We're going to cover Kenobi. This is a request from a viewer. So we're going to cover that for a little while. And in the meantime, we're going to cover news and other stuff that's coming out in books and stuff. But definitely stick around. If you have any questions about Rebels, if you have questions you want me to talk about when I do my Kenobi videos, if there's something else you want to see reviewed, some live action or animated Star Wars you want to see reviewed after Kenobi, let me know, right? Let me know in the comments below here on YouTube. Let me know on Threads or Instagram, anywhere like that. And just give me a shout. And thanks again for coming, guys. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you listening. Remember, like, share, subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, remember to take care of each other out there, and may the force be with you. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.